The hospital ceiling had those weird water stains that looked like someone spilled coffee on God's paperwork. I stared at them while a nurse fumbled with my IV, and somewhere down the hall, my mother was telling a doctor that if I died, she'd appreciate a text message instead of a phone call because she was getting a hot stone massage. Yeah, that actually happened. My name is Derek Matthews. I'm 16 years old, and up until about 6 hours ago, I thought I understood how screwed up my family was. Turns out, I didn't know the half of it. Let me back up a bit. I'm what you'd call the invisible kid. Not the cool, mysterious type, more like the "did we have a son?" type. I've got a sister, Jessica, who's 19 and has perfected the art of taking selfies while other people's lives fall apart around her. Then there's my mom, Linda, who treats motherhood like a hobby she picked up once but never really got into. My dad, he checked out when I was 8. Not dead, just gone. Moved to Arizona with a woman named Cheryl who sells essential oils and believes in crystal healing. Can't say I blame him for leaving, though taking me with him would have been nice. We were at my Aunt Carol's place for some birthday thing. I don't even remember whose birthday it was. These family gatherings all blur together into one endless loop of passive-aggressive comments and casseroles nobody wants to eat. I'd been standing in the corner playing on my phone when my mom announced she and Jessica were leaving early to hit some spa that was having a sale. "Derek, you can find your own way home, right?" she'd said, not really asking. "We already paid for the deluxe package and they only had 2 slots." I'd nodded, because what else was I going to do? Argue? Tell her that maybe, just maybe, a mother should drive her 16-year-old son home instead of abandoning him for a seaweed wrap? That conversation would have gone nowhere fast. So I left. Started walking to the bus stop about 4 blocks away. It was getting dark, that weird October darkness that comes too early and feels too heavy. I was crossing the street, had the walk signal and everything, when this SUV came out of nowhere. I remember thinking how weird it was that headlights could be so bright, and then thinking nothing at all. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground, and there was blood everywhere. My leg was bent in a way legs definitely shouldn't bend. Some lady was screaming, a guy in a Patriots jersey was on the phone with 911, and I was just lying there thinking, Mom's gonna be so pissed about missing her massage. The ambulance came pretty fast. The EMTs were nice, professional. One of them, this older guy with gray hair, kept telling me I was going to be okay, while his partner radioed ahead to the hospital. I heard words like compound fracture and possible internal bleeding and prep for emergency surgery. At the hospital, things got hazy. There was a lot of noise, bright lights, people moving fast. Someone gave me something for the pain that made everything feel like I was watching my life through a dirty window. A doctor appeared, young guy, looked stressed. He was talking to someone on the phone, talking to my mom. That's when I heard it, clear as day, even through my drug-induced fog. "Ma'am, your son needs emergency surgery. We need your consent. Yes, I understand you're at a spa, but, ma'am, this is serious. He could lose the leg or worse." "What?" "No, Ma'am, I can't just..." "I understand, but..." The doctor's face went through about 5 different emotions, landing on something between disbelief and rage. She said if it dies, she'll want to know, but she doesn't have time for paperwork right now. She actually said that. She said, "If it dies, let me know." The nurse, this middle-aged woman with kind eyes and glasses on a chain, looked like she wanted to commit murder. That's not... "Get legal on the phone," the doctor said, "and prep him for surgery anyway. I'm not letting this kid die because his mother values a facial over his life." I must have passed out after that, because the next thing I remember was waking up in a hospital room. My leg was in a cast, elevated on some kind of pulley system. Everything hurt, but in that distant way where you know the pain is there, but the drugs are keeping it at arm's length. A woman was sitting in the chair next to my bed. Not my mother. Not Jessica. This was someone I've never seen before. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked expensive but not showy. She was reading a book, something with a worn cover that suggested she'd read it multiple times. "Hey," I croaked. My throat felt like sandpaper. She looked up, and her face broke into this smile that was genuinely warm. "Hey, yourself. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a car." "That's because you did get hit by a car." She set her book down. "You've been out for about 14 hours. They had to put some pins in your leg, do some work on your spleen. You're going to be okay, though." "Who are you?" She hesitated, and something flickered across her face. Anger, maybe, or sadness. "My name is Patricia Reeves. I'm a lawyer, and as of about 6 hours ago, I'm your legal guardian." I blinked. The drugs made processing information harder than usual. "What?" "Your mother refused to consent to your surgery, said she, and I quote, didn't have time for paperwork. The hospital got a judge on the phone, explained the situation, and given the circumstances and your mother's clear neglect, they granted me emergency guardianship." She leaned forward. "I was here for a different case, heard what was happening, and volunteered. I've been a foster parent before. Seemed like you could use someone in your corner." I stared at her. "My mom just gave me up?" "She didn't fight it. The hospital social worker called her after the surgery. She said, and again I quote, 'That's probably for the best. He's a lot of work.'" Patricia's voice was carefully neutral, but I could see the fury in her eyes. "Your sister apparently agreed with her." Something cracked inside my chest. It wasn't surprise, not really. More like confirmation of something I'd always suspected, but never let myself fully believe. My own mother had just written me off like a bad investment. "Okay," I said, because what else was there to say? Patricia's expression softened. "I know this is a lot to process, especially right now. We can talk more when you're feeling better. For now, just focus on healing." She paused. "And Derek, I'm not going to abandon you. I know you have no reason to trust that right now, but I mean it." I wanted to believe her. I wanted it so badly it physically hurt, which might have been the broken ribs or might have been something else entirely. Instead, I just nodded and closed my eyes. The next few days were a blur of hospital routines, physical therapy consultations, and visits from social workers who looked at me with pity I didn't want. Patricia came every day, sometimes twice a day. She brought books, downloaded movies on her tablet, and just sat with me. She didn't push me to talk about my feelings or process my trauma. She just existed in my space, steady and calm and there. My mother never called, never visited. Jessica posted a selfie from the spa on Instagram with the caption, "Self-care isn't selfish." I stared at it for a long time, zooming in on her face looking for some sign that she gave a damn about me. There was nothing. On day 4, Patricia brought someone with her, a man, late 40s, with the kind of face that suggested he'd seen some things and wasn't impressed by most of them. "Derek, this is Marcus Webb. He's a private investigator and an old friend of mine." She sat down in her usual chair while Marcus leaned against the wall. "I want to talk to you about something, but I need you to hear me out completely before you respond. Can you do that?" I nodded. "Your mother abandoned you. There's no other word for it. She chose a spa day over your life, then gave up custody without a second thought. That's unforgivable. But here's the thing. People like that don't just suddenly become terrible. This is a pattern, and I'm willing to bet this isn't the first time she's chosen herself over you. Am I right?" I thought about all the missed school events, the forgotten birthdays, the times I'd been sick and she'd been too busy to pick me up from school, the time I won a writing contest in 7th grade and she threw away my trophy because it was cluttering up the mantel, the way she'd introduced me to her friends as the accident that ruined my figure. Yeah, I whispered. Marcus here specializes in finding things people want to keep hidden. Financial records, communications, that kind of thing. She looked at me intently. I think your mother is a narcissist who's been neglecting you for years. And I think she's been benefiting financially from having a dependent child. Tax credits, maybe child support from your father that you've never seen. Maybe more. Marcus spoke up, his voice gravelly. I can dig into her finances, her history. If she's been profiting off you while giving you nothing, that's fraud. That's actionable. We can make sure she faces consequences. But that's not even the best part, Patricia continued, and now there was something sharp in her smile. The best part is that you're still 16, still a minor, which means all the financial obligations she's been dodging still enforceable. Medical bills, basic needs, everything she should have been providing, we can go after her for all of it. Make her pay. Literally. I looked between them. Why are you doing this? Patricia's smile faded. Because I had a son. Had. Past tense. He died when he was 15. Leukemia. And I would have done anything. Given anything to save him. Sold my house, my car, every possession I owned. I would have carved out my own organs if it had helped. The idea that someone would have a healthy child and just discard him like trash, that someone would value a massage over their kid's life, it makes me physically ill. So yeah, I'm doing this partially for you, but I'm also doing it because your mother deserves to understand what she threw away, and she deserves to pay for it in every way possible. Something shifted in my chest. It wasn't quite hope. Not yet. But it was something. What do I have to do? I asked. Marcus grinned. Just heal, kid, and maybe answer some questions about your home life. Patricia and I will handle the rest.
Over the next 2 weeks, while I was either in the hospital or starting to settle into Patricia's house, our actual house, with a room for me and everything, Marcus worked. The man was thorough, I'll give him that. He found bank statements showing my mother had been receiving child support from my dad for years, money that was supposed to go toward my care, money I'd never seen. She'd been getting tax credits for having a dependent, had even claimed me on some kind of assistance program while she was getting weekly spa treatments and buying designer handbags. He found emails between her and Jessica, talking about me like I was a burden they couldn't wait to get rid of, messages dating back years. Can't wait until Derek is 18 and we can stop pretending to care. Maybe he'll move in with his dad and we can finally have the house to ourselves. I'm so tired of having to act like a mother at school events. Reading those hurt worse than the accident, if I'm being honest. But Patricia sat with me while I read them, and when I cried, I cried. She didn't tell me to man up or get over it. She just handed me tissues and told me it was okay to be angry. Anger is useful, she said. Anger means you know you deserved better. And you did, Derek. You deserved so much better. Marcus also found something interesting. My mom had a new boyfriend, some guy named Keith, who apparently had money. They were planning to move in together, maybe get married. And in one email to a friend, my mom had written, Keith doesn't know about Derek. I told him I only have one daughter. Easier that way. Once Derek turns 18, he'll be completely out of the picture, and Keith will never have to know I had a son. That one made Patricia's face go pale with rage. She was going to erase you. Just pretend you never existed. Yeah, I said, feeling numb. Guess she got her wish early. No, Patricia said firmly. She doesn't get to do that. She doesn't get to abandon you and then skip off into the sunset without consequences. Marcus, tell him what else you found. Marcus looked almost happy. Your mom's been committing tax fraud, claiming expenses for you she never actually spent. The IRS is going to be very interested in that. Also, the child support your dad's been sending, that's legally supposed to go to your care. Since it didn't, and since she's no longer your guardian, we can sue for recovery of those funds, every penny. And since you're now Patricia's dependent and your injuries require extensive medical care and therapy, we can sue for future support too. How much are we talking? I asked. Conservatively, between the back child support, the fraudulent tax claims, and the medical expenses she should be covering, we're looking at around $200,000, maybe more. Marcus crossed his arms. And that's before we get into the emotional distress angle, though that's harder to quantify. I whistled. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of spa days she won't be able to afford, Patricia said with grim satisfaction. That's her comfortable lifestyle gone. That's explaining to Keith why she's suddenly broke and in legal trouble. That's consequences, Derek. Real ones. We filed the lawsuits 3 weeks after the accident. The look on my mother's face when she was served papers at her favorite restaurant right in front of Keith was apparently spectacular. Jessica called me, first time I'd heard from her since before the accident, screaming about how I was ruining everything and how could I be so selfish. Selfish? I almost died. You were getting a pedicure. Mom told the doctor to let her know if I died because she didn't have time for paperwork, and I'm selfish? She didn't have an answer for that, just sputtered for a bit before hanging up. The legal process was slow, but watching it unfold was satisfying in a way I didn't know I needed. My dad, when he found out what happened, was horrified. Apparently, he'd been sending that child support faithfully, thinking it was actually going to my care. He flew out from Arizona, met with Patricia and Marcus, and provided documentation of every payment. He also apologized, over and over, for leaving me with her. I thought she was just self-centered, not dangerous, he said, looking older than I remembered. I should have fought for custody. I should have checked on you more. I'm so sorry, Derek. It was weird having a parent actually apologize, actually act like they cared. We weren't going to have some magical reconciliation, but it was something. The lawsuits moved forward. My mother's lawyer tried to argue that she hadn't abandoned me, that it was all a misunderstanding, but the hospital records were clear. The doctor's notes, the recordings of the phone calls, her own emails and text messages, there was no spinning it. She settled before it went to trial, paid almost everything we asked for, sold her car and her precious handbag collection, had to break up with Keith because he didn't want to be with someone who came with that much baggage and bad press. The local news had picked up the story, Mother abandons injured teen for spa day, and she'd become a local pariah.
Jessica lost her trust fund, the one my grandparents had set up, because my mother had been dipping into it to fund her lifestyle and now had to pay it all back. She had to drop out of her expensive college and get a job. She blamed me, of course, sent me messages about how I'd destroyed the family. I blocked her number. The money went into a trust for my future, for college and medical expenses. Patricia didn't want any of it, insisted it was all mine. She'd already given me more than I knew what to do with just by being there, by being the parent I'd needed. 6 months after the accident, I was walking again, with only a slight limp. I'd started therapy, the talking kind, and was working through a lot of complicated feelings about family and abandonment and self-worth. Patricia had officially adopted me. It was strange, having a parent who actually showed up to things, who cared about my grades and my friends and my feelings. We were having dinner one night, just the two of us, when she asked me how I was really doing. Honestly, I pushed rice around my plate. I feel guilty sometimes, like maybe I went too far. She's my mom, you know? Patricia set down her fork. Derek, let me tell you something. Being a parent isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about putting your child's needs above your own comfort. It's about being there even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Your biological mother failed at that in the most spectacular way possible. You didn't destroy your family. There's no family there to destroy. What you did was stand up for yourself and make sure there were consequences for her actions. That's not revenge. That's justice. It feels like revenge sometimes, I admitted. Good, she said fiercely. Let it feel like revenge. Let it feel like every emotion you needed to feel. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel satisfied that she's facing consequences. You're allowed all of it. And none of it makes you a bad person. Know what makes someone a bad person? Telling a doctor to let you know if their kid dies because they don't have time for paperwork. I laughed, surprised. It came out bitter and sharp and felt incredibly good. There we go, Patricia smiled. That's the spirit. Your mother made her choices. She chose a spa day over you. She chose to pretend you didn't exist. She chose to steal money meant for your care. Every single consequence she's facing now is a direct result of her own actions. You didn't do this to her. She did it to herself. And if people think I'm vindictive, I asked, then they can join her at the bottom of my priority list, Patricia said. The people who matter, the people who actually know you, they understand. Everyone else, their opinions don't matter. A year later, I was 17 and genuinely happy. I had friends at my new school. I had a parent who gave a damn. I had plans for college, dreams for the future. I'd even started writing, processing everything through stories and essays. One of them won a contest and got published in a literary magazine. Patricia framed it and put it on the mantel where my mother had once thrown away my 7th grade trophy. I saw my biological mother once, by accident, at a grocery store. She looked older, tired. She was alone, pushing a cart with store-brand everything. She saw me, and for a second, something flickered across her face. Regret, maybe? Or just recognition of how much she'd lost. I didn't say anything, just walked past her like she was a stranger. Because that's what she was, a stranger who happened to share some DNA with me, but had never been a mother. Patricia was waiting in the car. Was that her? She asked when I got in. Yeah. How you feel? I thought about it. Nothing. I don't feel anything. Good, Patricia said, starting the car. That means you're healing. She was right. The anger was still there, but it wasn't consuming me anymore. It had transformed into something else. Not forgiveness. I'd never forgive what she did, but acceptance. Acceptance that some people are just broken, and it's not your job to fix them or destroy yourself trying to earn their love. My mother had made her choice. She'd chosen to be selfish, to be cruel, to throw away her own child, and she'd paid for it. Lost her lifestyle, her reputation, her daughter's respect, any chance at the future she'd planned. And me? I'd gained everything. A real parent, a real home, a future that wasn't just about survival, but about actually living. People ask me sometimes if I regret going after her so hard, if I think I should have been the bigger person and just walked away. I tell them the truth. Walking away would have been letting her win. Walking away would have been accepting that what she did was okay, that I didn't matter. Fighting back, making her face consequences, standing up for myself, that was me saying I mattered, that I deserved better, that children aren't disposable, and parents who treat them that way should pay the price. Was it revenge? Maybe. But it was also justice. And sometimes, when the universe fails to provide it, you have to create your own. And honestly, I sleep pretty well at night. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with my story. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living a good life and leaving toxic people in the rearview mirror. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'm curious how many different places this story reaches, and honestly, it reminds me that there's a whole world out there beyond the small-town drama I left behind. Whether you're watching from New York, Tokyo, United States, or anywhere in between, your support means everything. And if you've got your own story about standing up to toxic family or finding your real people, share it in the comments. We're all in this together. See you in the next one.